We have saved the best for last because in the Atlantic Division, somebody is going to be extremely disappointed. I think you got 7 teams here who are looking to make the playoffs. And the team in 8th, who I don't think is looking to make the playoffs, is the Boston Bruins. So I'm going to run through each team in the Atlantic and where I have them finishing this year. The Boston Bruins, I think, are just going to be in last, like they were last season. It was a surprise last season because I think everybody thought they had a really good roster. The team came out flat. They never got it going. Injuries derailed everything. And I think Boston had what I think a lot of people will look at as a lost season. And now I look at their roster, a Brad Marchand-less roster, and I say it's not any more impressive than what they were putting out there last season. I get Charlie McAvoy is healthy now. You're going to get a healthy Zadorov as well. Mason Lohrei is going to take another step. There's a young talent that they have that's going to be a lot better. But I look at the overall construction of this thing and I say, you overpaid Tanner Jeannot. Mikey Eazamont isn't going to be very good on your third line. I'm glad that you have Fraser Minton. He will be excellent in a couple of years and be an awesome Boston Bruin. Elias Lindholm as your first line center is very underwhelming for $7.75 million. David Pastrnak can always be a Hart Trophy candidate, but outside of that, I don't believe in the Boston Bruins having a bounce back season. Jeremy Swayman also might just be what he was last year, and that was a very average looking goaltender and not the goaltender that was in the Vezina Trophy conversation. Last year, Swayman had an .892 save percentage, and that is not what you want for $8.25 million. So Boston, I have you once again finishing last in the Atlantic. I have Buffalo finishing in 7th place, and this is a fan base that is not going to be happy with this decision by me, but I refuse to trust the Buffalo Sabres until they can prove it to me. I feel like that's fair. I feel like the Buffalo Sabres and Kevin Adams in particular, it's not a mistrust of the young quality stars like Dahlin and Thompson. It is a mistrust of Kevin Adams' ability to put a good mix of talent on the ice together. We've seen enough players leave Buffalo to prove that they've had talented players come through their organization, but they've never been able to make that team mix together and be a quality team. I know a couple years ago they barely missed the playoffs. And what did they follow that up with? Missing the playoffs again. Until this team does it, and I'm talking about the crest on the front of the jersey, until they do it, I refuse to believe that they can do it. They must prove it to me before I'm willing to pick them higher than 7th. The Detroit Red Wings, again, we get a team that is trying to break a long playoff drought. A team that really wants to take the step this year and get into the playoffs. And things are looking good in Detroit. I am willing to say that I could be so wrong on the Red Wings this year. John Gibson coming in at goaltender is one hell of a pickup. That's a shaky position that they've had for years now, and now they have a stable goaltender. In every single game that he's in there, they should have confidence that they're going to get really good starting goaltender. Mo Seider on the back end. This could be like Norris Trophy breakout year for Mo Seider. Edvinsson as well on the back end could have a really good season. Only 22. He's going to play big minutes for this team, and he could really come into his own. Marco Kasper, they have plugged in right now on the second line center. Marco Kasper could have a surprise superstar breakout year. That is a thing that could happen. Lucas Raymond has been there for so long. He could have an amazing year. There's so much potential here with this Red Wings lineup, but it's very similar to the Buffalo Sabres, where I need you guys to do the thing before we can all be sure that you can do the thing. Dylan Larkin is going to continue to be an underrated star in this league as well as their first line center. And even though I like the individual pieces, I just think there's so much more talent in the Atlantic Division, and I can't put this team higher than 6th place. The Ottawa Senators for me are coming in at 5th, which could be a playoff spot depending on how this thing shakes out. But I have them right there in that wild card position. They have Linus Ullmark, which is solid goaltending. And I think Levi Merilainen as their backup has a very high ceiling. I don't even need to say anything about Brady Tkachuk. That is the leader you want for this hockey team. This is a great mix of young and old. They got Perron, they got Giroux, they got Curtis McDermott, they got Lars Eller, they got Nick Cousins. That's a good group of vets. And then you look at the young talent who's only only going to get better as their careers go along. Ridley Grigg has really emerged. I didn't have Ridley Grigg is like a high-end prospect, and he's really come into his own the last couple of years. Shane Pinto will have a full season this year. Fingers crossed. Dylan Cousins will have a full season in Ottawa this year after being acquired last year. Zetterlund was a great pickup for their winger depth. I don't see this team taking a big jump this year, but I see them staying flat as where they were last year, and that's competing for a wild card spot. This is a team that can easily sneak into 6, 7, or 8 in the conference. That's where I got the Ottawa Senators. Montreal. What do we do with these Montreal Canadiens? Because these fans that they have, I know you're watching, are so hyped on this team because they are one of the youngest teams in the National Hockey League and already are very good. Last year's playoff berth was, I think, out of nowhere for a lot of people, and having a squad that's that young do that and get into the playoffs, that experience is very important. It's reminiscent, sorry for bringing this up, but it is reminiscent of the Toronto Maple Leafs team in 2017 getting into the playoffs against the Washington Capitals. And now they're back for another year, and you expect this team to remain where they are and only get better with young talent like Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky. Getting Bolduc was a fantastic trade with St. Louis. That is something they needed in their lineup, and they sent out a piece they didn't need. You got Kirby Dach down the middle. That's the only part you look at this lineup, you say they're a little light in their center depth. Suzuki, Dach, Kapanen, Evans is what we got lined up here on Puckpedia in terms of their 4 centers. Patrick Laine is going to be a specialist in terms of scoring all those goals from the Patrick Laine spot. Hopefully this year he looks a lot better than what he did at the end of last season. Hopefully he looks a lot better than what he did at the end of last season where he was dealing with injuries and got scratched in the playoffs. Noah Dobson was a fantastic pickup, and I've left out Lane Hudson and Ivan Demidov. This team has potential superstars on their hands in those 2 individuals. Lane Hudson can be a Norris Trophy winner. Demidov should be the Calder favorite this year. The only thing holding this team back is probably how young they are, which is a great thing and a bad thing because they may be too young to compete at the top of the Atlantic, but they are so young and so talented that they will be so good in a couple years. And right now, I think their floor is very high, and that's why I got them in 4th place here in the Atlantic. Tampa comes in at number 3, and their regular season last year was so good, and then everything just kind of went away in the playoffs when they ran up against the Florida Panthers. I expect them to have another good, very good regular season. Andrei Vasilevsky's in net. He's a healthy Andrei Vasilevsky. And this team has too many names that you know for them to be bad in the regular season. It's Gensel, Point, Kucherov, Hagel, Sorelli, Hedman, McDonough, and like I said, Vasilevsky. People have been waiting years and years and years for this team to take a dip in the regular season. They just haven't done it. Their playoff success hasn't been there since their cup runs, but regular season, year in and year out, we know that this team has enough to be a very good regular season team. This one for me is one of the easier ones to just kind of pencil in there. Tampa finishes 3rd, 2nd, or 1st in this division. They are in perpetual win now mode as long as this core is there and John Cooper's behind the bench. So there's no reason to believe that Tampa should falter this year. That's why I got them in 3rd place. I will say this again and again and again until the cows come home, but the Florida Panthers are the best built team in the NHL. There isn't a hole in this lineup. Verhaeghe, Bennett, Marchand, Luostarinen, Lundell, Reinhart is their top 6. Boyquist, Rodriguez, and Moskevich is the 3rd line that Puckpedia has. And then when you go to D, it's Forsling, Ekblad, Mikkola, Jones. That is one hell of a roster. And then, of course, Sergei Bobrovsky in goal with his $10 million expiring. Expect them to sign him to like the cheapest deal, like League Min, to come back at age 38 and play goal for them. And then reallocate that $10 million to like acquiring Eichel. This team is a cheat code. In my eyes, they are the Stanley Cup favorite until somebody beats them. I expect them to win the Stanley Cup again. I expect them to three-peat with Barkov coming back in time for the playoffs. But they don't care about the regular season. The floor here is too good to fall below 3rd place. They are either going to be 1st, 2nd, or 3rd in this division. Unless injuries really take a toll on this team, which they did last year. The Barkov thing has already started. I see these Florida Panthers coasting along. Brad Marchand's going to keep the vibes up good for 82 games so that they won't be so bad where they'll fall deeper in the division, but they won't push themselves too hard where they're going to win the division. That's why I got them solidly in second place. And that leaves us with the Toronto Maple Leafs winning the Atlantic Division for a second year in a row. I think enough's been said about this Leafs roster and this team by me on the Steve Dango podcast and by all of the Leafs media out there. But for the last time, I just want to say it. The Leafs losing Mitch Marner is a good thing for this team. It means a reallocation of the money that Mitch Marner was making, which I think they have done effectively in acquiring Joshua, Michelli, and Nicholas Wall. The Leafs not having Joseph Woll to start the season will obviously be a blow to this team, but Stolarz should be fine to hold the fort as the number one goalie. This is his run. This is his turn at doing that. The first time in his career where he's going to get a legitimate chance to prove what he can do in net. The Leafs have always been a strong regular season team throughout the Matthews era. I don't see that changing, and I think last year they learned how to get this thing done, and I think that's going to continue. I think Austin in particular this year has something to prove. His numbers did take a dip last year because of the time he missed, but when he was in there, the paces he was on were ridiculous paces, and I personally have Austin winning the Rocket Richard this year, getting back to where he was at a goal-scoring pace. I don't know if it's going to be 70, but it's probably going to be 60 plus if all things go well. So your Toronto Maple Leafs are my first place Atlantic Division pick. Let me know your thoughts on the Atlantic Division, where you got these teams in the comment section on the Jesse Blake Sports Report YouTube channel. And while you are there, hit like and subscribe. I will see you again very soon. Hockey's back. The NHL season is underway by the time you're watching or listening to this thing. So cheers to that. Good night from Toronto.